Weekly feed, Kyle, Meredith, Mark, and Rose from Vandaveer. Hi.
Hi, Kyle.
It's good to see you.
Good to see you, man.
Hello.
How have you been doing?
We've just got this, when I imagine Vandaveer and I'm listening to your music, it's never in this kind of scenery right here, so.
NBC Suites?
Like NBC Suites. They don't know. We could be anywhere right now.
If you say it like you're from Louisville.
Yeah, that's NBC Suites. No, seriously. Oh, Willie, please. Is this a really interesting record that you guys have put out this year? And I'm sure you've talked about this a bunch of times now, but give us kind of the brief backstory, because what we're dealing with here are murder ballads. Really old murder ballads, right?
Yes. These are all songs from the public domain, so they're quite old. Some of them are several hundred years old. They come over from the British Isles, and they got stuck in Appalachia and became different versions of themselves and what have you. But we were invited to participate in the 78 project. I don't know if you know it. It's some friends of ours. They're actually working on a feature film, so it will become a household name whenever that comes out. But we were lucky enough to already be friends with them.
Yeah, that's helpful. That's helpful.
So
didn't have to win them over on
no. But
because the salesman, I've got a song for you, all right?
the basic gist of the 78 project is they have a contemporary artist take one song from the public domain and record it using a Presto 78 RPM acetate, like magical music making machine, like singing in the can kind of thing.
You get one chance.
Yeah, it's just a single microphone and it cuts the lacquer while you're performing. It's how Alan Lomax did his field recordings, and it's how a lot of the music was recorded in the early 20th century, because that was the only technology they had.
Is that an expensive thing to do now?
Yes, I think because
probably
maintaining the equipment.
Yeah.
I mean, the thing weighs. I mean, it looks like a dorm refrigerator.
Yeah.
It's like that's that big. And they're really heavy and they're real temperamental and cantankerous. But they travel with two of these because they break down so often. It was a really cool process, and it's a really cool project. So we were kind of on the front end of that. In the weeks following our session with them, we went up to New York and set up in this funky old hotel, and we played a song. And on the A side, we did Banks of the Ohio, and on the B side, we did one of our songs. But after that, just weeks after we did our session, they got Richard Thompson and Roseanne Cash and
because that's what they said. They said Vandaveer.
Loudon Wainwright.
Exactly.
I mean, it went from friends to to artists.
Yeah.
Anyway, for our part, when we were trying to pick a song, we had a hard time just whittling it down to one. And
so you knew a bunch of these songs already.
She knew all of them.
So this is a passion for you.
Well, no, I grew up. Yes, but
Yeah.
it's more of like I was raised in a super folk family, coming out of the '60s. I was born in the '70s, but that was kind of when all the revival of that sort of music started happening. Everybody got really into the old folk songs, and so I'm named after one of the songs on the record.
Oh.
Well, yeah, I was named after it.
She's saying that like you didn't know that before.
No, he did. He says it every night.
Yeah, it's. She says she's from a super folk family. It's like Justice League of America,
right.
but it's folk musicians. Their superpowers are folk songs.
So then for you, it's not really hard to find connections to these songs because these are stories that hopefully you don't live these every day.
Oh, I kind of do though.
Well, if we did, we couldn't tell you, Kyle.
That's true. That's true.
I did grow
You'd be
up with some strange fears about woods and rivers, for sure.
I think you still have those.
I do. It's one of those things when I'm going into a rural area with someone I don't particularly trust yet.
Right.
I'm always a little like, why are we going there?
Because these were your nursery rhymes.
Exactly.
It begs the question, what's she doing going into rural areas with strangers?
But the interesting thing about these songs, though, is a lot of them were cautionary tales because they didn't have, newspapers per se and all. And back in the day, especially in the rural areas and stuff, then it was more like, you've got these young women, how are you going to scare them enough to not run off in the woods with men?
Right.
Right. And so
you get pregnant, you get thrown in the river.
Yeah, they're very detail-oriented songs. So, I mean, in some cases, they would extract a confession out of the the perpetrator, and then set that to verse, and then that would become the latest incarnation of whatever that, not incarnation, but that would become a part of the canon of,
Yeah.
you know,
I never thought of it like
broadside
a
ballads.
cautionary tale. That's an interesting.
It's
Because for me, it was
absolutely
just like,
was.
oh, this is the stuff that happened and everything. You
Yeah.
know, and the folk, the song, you know, what were they? The minstrels would go around and carry the song. You know.
Yeah,
Well, but it's
yeah.
also so sensational, you know.
True.
It's just like we have murder mystery
Right. Right.
biography shows now. Like, I don't know what they're called, but like the one that it's like the first 48 hours,
Right.
where you know they have a very short window of time to solve the murder.
Well, that was the thing. Like listening to the record, like trying to figure out the parallels of all of that today. Obviously, all of these bad stories still happen today,
Right.
but they don't get treated the same way in
No,
their popular songs.
They're breaking news on
Right,
CNN.
right.
Or,
You don't get it like this. But you all, I mean, you haven't been writing like murder ballads this whole time, but there's
No.
something that really kind of works with these songs, with your originals, with
He's
the Vandaveer
always
original.
written murder ballads.
a few.
Yeah.
Honestly started writing songs that I would maybe loosely be called a murder ballad before I even was maybe even using that term.
Right.
I'm Johnny Come Lately to a lot of
It's back
traditional.
when Nick Cave was using that.
Exactly. Traditional folk music is something that I became more aware of and immersed in through you know traditional gateway artists, you know, like your Bob Dylans and your Tom Waits are the
Yeah.
kind of people that you, or Nick Cave. I felt really important. I think we say folk all the time, and I think a lot of people use the word folk to describe a lot of different kinds of music. So for us, we sort of felt like we keep using this word. At some point, we should probably use it in a
Right.
accurate manner.
I think a lot of bands, though, they're kind of afraid to step outside of the box. Like, they have that dream album they'd always want to make that's kind of different than what, you know, they do, but it's always like, well, we can't do it now because.
Well, sure.
Or we can't do it now because. And you guys are kind of like living proof that why not just take the chance? Because you can do whatever
Nothing
you
to
want.
lose.
No, yeah, you can't go down from zero.
That's not exactly. I mean, you guys, you have this great
I know.
catalog. Yeah.
No, I know. I'm just saying.
Right.
It wasn't like it was a huge risk. I don't
Yeah.
feel like we were on the precipice of something.
What if this had made you famous?
We aren't famous.
What if this had made you super famous? Because then that's what the people would know you for is you know this folky murder ballad thing.
You know, fame is a funny word, but
It's really only 4 letters.
Our
It
moms
doesn't even
think we're
sound.
famous.
that's all that matters.
That's true.
Our number one fans,
That's true.
Mom and Mom. they think we're, you know.
Well, with Vandaveer, I guess
Top dogs.
Yeah, with an album like "Oh Willie Please," and even with the music videos, I kind of get a sense that there's a character built up in it. Like I can look back
Yeah.
and not in a corny way or anything. Like I can look back and see when David Bowie did Ziggy, it was presented as an art form
Right.
kind of a thing. And I think that's kind of been lost over the last decade or so, that when a musician is putting themselves out there, they kind of forget that it's also entertainment.
Yeah.
And
you
with-
see it more in hip hop now than you do
Sure.
in rock and roll or
Yeah.
folk music. Or
But with
indie
Vandaveer, I
rock.
kind of get that Vandaveer is a character.
Yeah, I like that.
Yeah.
I don't know if I've ever thought about that specifically, but I don't.
So it's not something you really put thought into.
No, not particularly. I don't feel like we step into character or costume or anything like that when we get on stage and play. And I don't necessarily feel like we do that when we're in the studio. With "Oh Willie Please," we were very aware that we were performing songs that had, you know, great historical importance and that are very much a part of the American fabric. So there was a lot of we were quite aware of, you know, be respectful of the material and that sort of thing. But I think, I mean, if you're recording music and then you're putting it out there, the recording of the music is like a Polaroid snapshot of something
Sure.
that's alive, and a song changes and breathes. And you get on stage and you perform it. I guess that is show business, getting on stage and performing. But I never really, I thought about Vandaveer being a character to that extent, but to like the extent of David Bowie or Madonna or something like that. But I think also maybe because the record we're working on now is far more autobiographical for me, that I probably feel even less like Vandaveer as a character at this point.
Well, anyway, you were speaking of the new record. So, autobiographical record, there's going to be a band?
There's going to be a band.
That's the last time you played with a full band was like a different band ago, right?
Yeah, kind of.
No, not really.
We've gone out, Vandaveer started out as a solo project.
Yeah.
And I didn't really have a master plan for what it would become. For me, it was just sort of a vehicle for some songs. And it's continued to change over time. Rosie came on board in 2007 and has been with me ever since. And in the studio, we have a lot of different people play with us. But we've gone out and done some tours as a trio, a couple times as a 4-piece. But we made this record very much as a band, more so than prior records. So if all things fall into place, we'll take that crew out on the road.
So when do we expect it?
I don't know, Kyle.
Well, that's good enough.
Yeah, I mean, it's tracks.
Next year.
You think it's going to be next year, right?
Maybe
Yeah.
2014.
Okay.
Yeah, yeah. It's being mixed now, and
Cool.
and then there's that whole game
Sure.
between finishing it and it
Spring,
being
summer, fall.
It's fun to watch
Winter.
bands go
Blooming.
through that game and not having to do it myself. So,
fun.
Yeah.
You're a sadistic sort.
Yeah. All right, guys. Vandaveer 2014. We'll vote for you.
Awesome, Kyle. Thank you, man.
Yeah.
We'll see you soon, man.
All right. Bye.